Hi, welcome to Module 10 Innovation and Creativity. I'm Dr. Prabhakar Ghantasala, Associate Dean, School of Business, Southern Connecticut State University. I'm happy to be discussing innovation and the importance of innovation and creativity for an agile leader. While an agile leader creates the kind of transformational effect, builds a culture that supports innovation and learning, and fosters a sense of sustainability, competitive advantage, and resilience for any organization. The learning objectives of this module is mastering innovation through agile practices and also the ability to develop creative thinking tools. Each individual, whether we are a leader or a manager or just an employee or a team member, I think it's important for us to be able to master innovation by practicing certain practices called agile practices and also developing creative thinking tools that are essential to get us to do the job and do it really well and to think outside the box to create the kind of impact that ordinarily would not be possible. What are the kind of innovation frameworks? The learning objective one is to discuss innovation frameworks and the different approaches that you can have for discussing innovation as a framework. The first one being design thinking. Think about it this way. Apple, what do? They're not engaged in manufacturing Apple products, but they're engaged in designing Apple products. It's the design element that becomes the core approach for Apple. They think about it this way from the customer's perspective: empathy mapping, rapid prototyping, looking at the development of an entire ecosystem. That is what Apple does really well. The integration of everything that Apple does, whether it's an iPhone or an iPad or a Mac, or the software implementation and the encryption and the security systems. An entire Apple ecosystem is created, including Apple Pay. So obviously, it's the design thinking that triggers innovation and that lets Apple really design products that outsell all of its competition. And for many years, Apple has maintained a resilient, sustainable position because of their design thinking. There is another way of looking at innovation. It's called the lean innovation. A classical example of lean innovation is Toyota's Kaizen system, where they try and reduce waste. The emphasis is on continuous improvement and also operational efficiency. Toyota's just-in-time management, again, is a classical example of lean innovation and maintaining the right set of inventory in support of its manufacturing and production. And Toyota has done plenty of lean innovation implementation within its own organizational context in support of the innovation that it brings, both in product design, product implementation, and process and efficiency implementations within the organization. The third framework, apart from design thinking and lean innovation, for which Apple and Toyota are great examples, is open innovation. Now, if you look at all the software development that you have, it's driven by out open, software innovation that's happening from external collaboration, building an ecosystem that supports that kind of open innovation. I would strongly recommend for you to watch a video called Innovation Methods Explained. IDEO has had this video up there in YouTube, which talks about different frameworks for innovation, including design thinking, like the one Apple follows, versus lean innovation, which Toyota does, versus open innovation, where a lot of software companies are engaged in. Agile innovation practices is the second thing that we would all be interested as individuals, as agile leaders, as members who are responsible in organization to keep our organizations nimble, also innovative, and keep them sustainable. What are the key elements? The first and foremost important element is rapid experimentation. Agile organizations follow rapid experimentation. They're very quick for minimum viable product development. They know the intersection between what customers needs versus what are the core competences of the organization. The intersection point gives you a minimum viable product development, and they're quick to do it. They don't waste time, and that's part of rapid experimentation. They also have this ability to iterate quickly and make process improvements, product improvements very, very quickly. So they don't take too much time making those kind of improvements in the minimum viable product. and make it a great product by the time it hits the market after mass production and manufacturing. The second element that supports agile innovation is taking in customer feedback. So obviously, it's what we call as quality function deployment. When companies like Sony, for example, take customer feedback, bring in experts from different parts of the world to tell them how their products work. Like, for instance, their digital cameras, their Alpha line of cameras, extremely popular, very, very good with their autofocusing system, with the technology that's built in, the AI that's used for autofocus, and making sure the dynamic range really works well, the animal detection, the human face detection, eye detection, object detection is spot on. If you want to shoot fast action wildlife, that's possible. If you're just a hobbyist, they have a line of cameras that will fit a hobbyist or a casual shooter. So obviously, taking customer feedback, Sony has been able to directly engage with end users, including professionals and the casual shooters, and they take in their insights and they build it into their next model. And those kind of process improvements or product or user interface improvements are also rolled out in terms of firmware updates. So customer feedback is a classical example that companies use for agile innovation and supporting innovation as a constant thing. The third element that supports agile innovation practices is adaptive planning. So you want to look at products and think about asking yourself the question, what are features that have to be prioritized? And also sprint planning, you should be able to do things quick. You introduce bugs and problems in a product design and you fix it yourself. You're asking yourself, are we capable of handling a particular situation even before it arises? So a company's ability to identify problems and respond to these problems in a quick manner is what we call as adaptive planning. And for instance, any company that produces multi-factor authentication software, creates security systems, has to be able to anticipate cyber attacks, the type of intrusions that can happen, that hacking that can happen, and should be able to anticipate kind of firewalls and protocols, security protocols that have to be built into their products before they sell it to the clients. I would strongly recommend for you to watch a video, Agile Innovation by Stanford University, available on YouTube, which talk about the key elements that support agile innovation practices. There are plenty of creative thinking tools that agile leaders follow and should be using. Some of the tools are listed here that I'll be happy to explain. The first and foremost tool that agile leaders should encourage employees, team members, themselves to be able to use is divergent thinking. For example, Google's brainstorming sessions offers opportunities for all employees to be able to share their innovative ideas on the fly. So employees of Google could be at the cafeteria, could be at the gym, and if they had a great idea that they're thinking about, they have a discussion board, a digital discussion board that they could write their idea or suggestion, and that idea is or suggestion is shared across the entire organization. So Google's case of supporting divergent thinking, taking all the product or innovation ideas very seriously, and the ability to use a digital board for sharing these great ideas. So first is the support for ideation, and the second is sharing of that kind of ideas across the board so that everybody understands the importance of ideas, innovation, come back to the table and discuss each idea, pros and cons, and figure out what can be implemented. Possibility expansion is something that's also in support of divergent thinking. You're always thinking outside the box and asking yourself, if you want to implement this differently from prior instances, what would you do? The opposite of divergent thinking is convergent thinking, wherein you have to encourage idea evaluation, look at the pros and cons, the cost benefit analysis for every creative idea, and then figure out what ideas have to be prioritized as being urgent as well as important, and taking important decisions in support of converting that idea into a tangible product or service. Lateral thinking, another very important practical tool for supporting creativity. Tesla uses that. It's an industry disruption. They break patterns. They have novel connections. And if you see Tesla, SpaceX go all places, including Mars, they're planning to send a mission to Mars. It's because they try to break the pattern. They think outside the box. They're fast at implementing changes. They make novel connections, and they make sure they experiment, and they're not afraid of failing. I strongly recommend for you to watch another video called Creative Thinking Techniques. Edward De Bono, a wonderful book on author, and it's also a YouTube video which you can watch on YouTube. It's called Creative Thinking Techniques, where Edward De Bono also explains a lot of stuff like PMI, positives, minuses, and interesting factors, talks about miniaturization. He also explains a lot of stuff like genetic evolution as a method, brainstorming, the Delphi technique, the nominal group technique. There are several techniques that De Bono explains, including the thinking hats method, where you use several different thinking hats to come back and report how you would deal with a particular situation or a problem. Innovation culture, again, every agile leader is interested in creating an organization that supports innovation culture, that supports the use of creativity tools, and what are the building blocks. We discussed in prior modules psychological safety. You've got to create for your organizational members an environment for open dialogue, for transparency, for collaborative spirit, and also communicate the message that you are okay taking risks and you have a level of risk tolerance and you're okay doing experiments, and if there is a failure in experiments, that it's fine. So that kind of communication creates a culture that supports psychological safety. Another important building block for supporting innovation culture is resource allocation. I did mention in my prior modules as well, 3M as a company offers 15% of the time, offers employees and teams organizational resources, allocates budget in support of pursuing these product innovations at 3M. So 3M actually puts in together heterogeneous teams, members from different domain expertise come together and work, utilize 15% of their work time, utilize also resources given by 3M, both financial, staff, intellectual capital, and other resources that they might require to pursue a product innovation that they are very passionate about. And as a result, 3M has hundreds and thousands of patents in all product categories, and they are such an innovative company for the kind of innovation culture that they've created within 3M. Time dedication, again, very important that 3M supports, giving them 15% of time, and that actually frees employees of their daily chores, and they can focus on creative talents and make sure they work in teams and maximize the return of working in collaborative teams. The third building block for supporting innovation culture is recognition systems. I mean, innovation as a thought process, innovation as a way of life, innovation as a culture, innovation as a value for an organization cannot be sustained over a long period of time if you do not have innovation rewards. And if you do not celebrate success, if you do not recognize accomplishments, that kind of culture is not sustainable. So obviously, when you support innovation in terms of giving time, providing resources, also having transparency and letting employees know that you tolerate failure, you tolerate certain levels of calculated risk, it's also important to communicate to all employees on teams engaged in innovation to say that there are rewards for building certain great new product ideas and innovative systems. And these rewards and recognitions are valued by each of those employees. That direct connect between effort, performance, and the value of rewards, like the Room Yeton model or the Porter Lawler model, clearly showcases to the employees and team members that innovation is valued, effort and performance is valued, and the rewards that we get are substantial, and those are of some value that we as organizational members want to get. So there are certain case studies that I wish to bring to your attention in support of innovation culture and the creativity tools that these companies utilize in making things happen in the organization as they do. Like SpaceX, for example, is a classical innovation leader where rapid prototyping is a way of life. They fail fast kind of approach that they follow. They're not afraid of failing. They try big things. They think outside the box as an organization. Members get the kind of resources and support, and they follow a fail fast approach. There's plenty of vertical integration where they work closely across suppliers, main core competence providers, as well as SpaceX own teams. And that kind of vertical integration makes sure that they're having a strong spacecraft, a strong mission that's not set up for failing, but they're not afraid of failing at the same level. So obviously that's a kind of innovation leaders example that I'm happy to share here. Another example is Netflix, where they have done a lot of algorithm innovation, where Netflix can monitor content consumption across different categories or genres, and they're able to use this algorithmic data collection to figure out what kind of content should be produced, what kind of content gets the maximum viewership, what kind of content across different demographics is popular. Content strategy, they also build a lot of feedback so that they can introduce that feedback when they develop content, when they produce content for their streaming purposes. They are very innovative. They created their own business model, and that's been working great for Netflix. So it's a very strong innovation-driven culture and company led by agile leaders. Amazon's Amazon Web Services development, again, a classical example of innovation. The Kindle ecosystem, again, a very good example. The Alexa platform that we all use at our homes is another example of innovation at Amazon. I would strongly recommend for you to watch two videos, Innovation Case Studies by Harvard Business Review and Innovation Workshops by Design Thinking, that you will surely appreciate and understand why building innovation culture is extremely important for agile leaders, and why is it that the use of creativity tools is extremely important for the purpose of creating an innovation culture. How do you measure innovation? The key metrics to measure innovation, the input metrics, what's the research investment that every organization is putting into it? And as an agile leader, how much of resource support can you secure in terms of what you can uh, put in as a research investment? How much time that you give for your organizational members and team members in support of pursuing the research ideas, whether it's product innovation or service innovation? How much of time allocation would you want to give your employees and teams to engage in innovative product development, for example? Resource deployment, what other organizational resources, technology resources would you give your teams in support of innovation? All these are input metrics. Now, there is also process metrics that are important for supporting and sustaining innovative practices and making sure innovation works for your company. The process metrics include how many ideas are generated, how many brainstorming sessions generate how many ideas, what's the per individual per capita ideas that get generated. Like for example, in Japan, ideas generated per each individual employee runs into several thousands. Experiment velocity, like how many experiments would you do? Tesla's SpaceX is a classical example of doing plenty of experimentation. They're not afraid of failing. And the implementation speed, the number of launches that SpaceX has had is extremely quick. So these are process metrics that makes SpaceX such an innovative company. And then you think about output metrics, revenue impact, market share, customer adoption. Say, for example, Alibaba or Tencent, all these big China companies, classical examples of revenue impact, having a huge market share, customer adoption, like Temu, for example. These are all companies that have gone big in terms of how quickly they could have customer adoption. ChatGPT, another example of customer adoption. Almost all of us use ChatGPT for some purpose or the other these days. And that's a classical example of getting customer adoption. I would strongly recommend for you to watch a video called Innovation Metrics by McKinsey's Innovation. It's available on YouTube. And I'm sure you will benefit from watching the video and have a better understanding of key metrics, which include input metrics, process metrics, and output metrics. There are certain common challenges and solutions that agile leaders face while trying to build innovation cultures or while trying to implement creativity tools in support of building such a culture. The first one itself is called what we call as innovation inertia. So you might have to run into a kind of situation where team members, organizational units, or departments just don't want to innovate because they have a sense of inertia. That is where you could create innovation sprints and squads that can actually help you create that kind of you know whatever innovation momentum that you want to build within your company. Resource constraints could be a common challenge. Sometimes you run out of finances, sometimes you might not have the right kind of intellectual assets to support innovation. In such situations, a solution could be lean innovation. You focus on areas where you have competences and skills, where you have certain resources, and you can focus on building efficiencies, improving your bottom line, doing cost cutting, improving your profits. And then in the future, of course, you can do plenty of other innovations. Toyota's example of lean innovation is a classical case where they improved efficiency in production, in their inventory management, and that's through Kaizen and also through just in time. The third challenge you could have is risk aversion as part of a culture that nobody wants to take any kind of risk, not even a basic level of risk. And so you have to create that kind of confidence, trust, and collaboration, and communicate to every individual that it's okay to fail as long as it is safe to fail. So obviously, Google's X's moonshots. That's a recommended video that I would give you to watch as well from BCG. And another video that is Innovation Excellence from Clayton, that's also available in YouTube for you to watch. These two are good videos that you can watch to support your understanding of the challenges and common solutions. Additional resources that I can suggest you here are The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen, Design Thinking by Tim Brown, Goodreads. There are several online courses from Coursera like Innovation and Creativity. edX has another video called Leading Innovation, a course. Communities like Innovation Leaders Network, Design Thinking Community, all great sources of information, of case examples, company experiences that you can learn from. So with that, we covered the important aspects of innovation culture and the creativity tools that agile leaders can use while building an innovation culture. Thank you.